Red carpets don't stop steel and speed. In the next minutes, you'll hear 10 true stories where fame met the hard edge of the road. No graphic detail, only clear timelines and verified facts. For each case, the lead-up, the risk that tipped the balance fatigue, alcohol, speed, weather, or a split-second mistake, the injuries, the career impact, and what changed after. Listen for patterns they repeat. If you drive, these lessons are yours. Slow down. Sleep, never mix alcohol with the wheel, and choose safety over pride. One decision can save a life or end one. This is 10 celebrities in horrific car crashes, clear sober. To the point, let's begin. Lisa Lopes, left eye premonition. Lisa left eye. Lopes is one of the three indispensable pieces of TLC, the legendary R&B group that made waves throughout the 1990s with hits like Waterfall's No Scrubs and Creep Together with Tyon T-Boz, Watkins and Rosanda Chili. Thomas Lisa turned TLC into the best-selling female group in the U.S., won a series of Grammy Awards, and shaped a bold, rebellious style in popular music. But behind the spotlight, Lisa's life was a series of storms. She was famous for her hot temper and was once involved in a violent relationship with NFL player Andre Risson. In 1994, after an argument, Lopes burned Rison's shoes, causing his house to burn down. That scandal made her image the focus of criticism. TLC also had many conflicts, especially over finances and creative control. That's why in the early 2000s, Lopes decided to leave the noise behind to find peace. In early 2002, Lisa Lopes went to Honduras, a land she considered a spiritual haven to meditate, keep a diary, and find new inspiration for music. However, in that diary, she wrote many times about a strange premonition that she would die young and even in a car accident. Those lines make people shudder when looking back at her death. On April 25, 2002, Lopes was behind the wheel of a Mitsubishi Montero, carrying a few friends along a rural road in Honduras, when she suddenly had to avoid a small truck coming in the opposite direction. She lost control. The car veered off the road and flipped several times. The tragedy was even more cruel when Lisa was not wearing a seatbelt. The roll caused her to be thrown through the glass window, hit head-on, and died on the spot. What's even more horrifying, right before the accident, Lisa Lopes was holding a camera to record her journey. Those final videos, later released, recorded not only the daily scene, but also the dark premonition she had written in her diary, as if predicting her death. Lisa Lopes passed away at the age of 30, leaving fans around the world in shock. TLC, from then on, forever lost her rap voice and rebellious personality. Many people called her the Blue Flame, burning brightly, fiercely, but too short. Lisa's death was not only a loss for music, but also became one of the most haunting, fateful stories in the entertainment industry. An artist who sensed her own fate and then passed away exactly as she had sensed it. Jane Mansfield, the tragedy that created new laws. Jane Mansfield was once considered a sex symbol on par with Marilyn Monroe in the 1950s, 1960s. With her blonde hair, hot body, and daring style, she appeared in many films such as The Girl Can't, Help It 1956, Will Success Spoil, Rock Hunter 1957, and quickly became a bright star of Hollywood. In addition to acting, Mansfield also stood out thanks to her tumultuous personal life, love affairs, and scandals that always covered the press, making her one of the most famous female stars of that period. However, that halo was suddenly extinguished by a terrible tragedy. In the early morning of June 29, 1967, Mansfield was sitting in a Buick Electra with her 3 young children and 2 elderly friends, traveling on US 90 near New Orleans, Louisiana. The car, driven by Ronald B. Harrison, was headed to New Orleans for a gig. On the fateful stretch of road, a large truck was spraying mosquito repellent, creating a thick fog that obscured visibility. In the pitch-black darkness, the Buick slammed into the back of the truck. The impact was so powerful that the front of the car was almost completely crushed. Jane Mansfield, driver Ronald Harrison, and manager Sam Brody died instantly. The 3 children in the back seat, Mickey Jr., Zoltan, and Mariska Hargitay, who would later become a television star with a role on Law Order SVU, miraculously survived with only minor injuries. The images of the scene were deeply disturbing. The media at the time even falsely reported that Mansfield had lost her head in the accident, adding to the horror of The incident. However, the official report stated that she died from severe head trauma, not decapitation as rumored. This tragedy marked a milestone in American transportation history. After the incident, the U.S. government issued a regulation requiring all large trucks to install steel bars on the rear to prevent cars from going under them in the event of a collision. The device later became known by a familiar name, Mansfield Bar, in memory of the tragedy that took the life of Jane Mansfield. Mansfield's death at the age of 34 not only deprived Hollywood of a sexy star, but also became a catalyst for changes in road safety laws across the U.S. And in that pain, a miracle still remained. The three children, especially Mariska Hargitay, lived on, rose up, and became one of the most beloved faces on television. Tracy Morgan, the miracle of survival. Tracy Morgan, a comedian familiar with Saturday Night Live and 30 Rock, experienced one of the most horrific accidents in the history of entertainment, but also became a living testament to the miracle of resurrection. In the early morning of June the 7th, 2014, Morgan and his colleagues were returning from a show in Delaware, traveling in a limousine on the New Jersey Turnpike. Suddenly, a Walmart truck driven by Kevin Roper came from behind. The driver had been working continuously for more than 24 hours without a break, in a state of extreme fatigue. Unable to brake in time, the multi-ton truck crashed straight into the limousine, causing it to flip several times in the middle of the highway, almost completely deformed. The result was tragic. Morgan's close colleague James "Jimmy" McNair died on the spot. Tracy Morgan suffered multiple serious injuries, broken ribs, pelvis, traumatic brain injury, and fell into a deep coma for 2 weeks. Doctors feared he would never walk again or even return to the stage. But a miracle happened. With a strong will and months of therapy, Morgan gradually learned to walk, talk, and finally returned to the audience. More than a year later, he stepped onto the stage at the 2015 Emmy Awards, recounting his journey to a thunderous applause. It was not only the return of an artist, but also a symbol of human strength in the face of cruel fate. The accident also created a huge legal shock. Walmart was harshly criticized for allowing drivers to work overtime. The company was forced to pay tens of millions of dollars in compensation to the victims, and at the same time adjusted its safety policy, tightening the working hours limit for long-haul drivers to prevent similar tragedies. Tracy Morgan not only survived, he also turned his near-death experience into comedy material. Returning to the shows, he tells the story with his signature laugh, proving that sometimes the most devastating tragedies can also be the most powerful inspirations. Gloria Estefan, from darkness to light. Gloria Estefan, queen of Latin pop, is one of the world's biggest music icons of the late 20th century. With her powerful voice together with the Miami Sound Machine, she brought Latin pop closer to a global audience through hits like "Conga Rhythm Is Gonna Get You" or "Anything for You." But that halo almost faded after a terrible accident. On March 20th, 1990, while touring by bus in Pennsylvania, Estefan's group had to stop in the middle of the highway due to congestion. Suddenly, a heavy truck came from behind, couldn't brake in time, and crashed head-on into the back of the bus. The violent collision caused the entire bus compartment to shake as if it were exploding. Estefan was thrown off, fell down, and suffered serious injuries. Her spine was broken. Her body was in so much pain that it was almost paralyzed. Doctors immediately performed a surgery that lasted several hours to fix her spine with metal rods. But the prognosis was bleak. They said Estefan might never sing again and might not even walk again. For an artist who made her living on stage, that was a heavy sentence. However, Gloria Estefan did not give up. She began an arduous rehabilitation process, months of training step by step, learning how to stand, how to walk, and coping with the pain. Nearly 18 months after the accident, Estefan made an emotional return to the stage. The song "Coming Out of the Dark" was born from this very event, like a declaration to turn darkness into light, turn pain into strength. Global audiences welcomed Estefan as a symbol of strength. The image of her standing firmly again under the spotlight, singing powerfully, was not only a personal victory, but also an inspiration for millions of people who had faced adversity. Gloria Estefan not only returned, she continued to shine, maintaining a career that spanned decades. And the accident in 1990, instead of ending her glory, became a special chapter, etching her name as a living testament to the ability of humans to overcome darkness, to reach the light. James Dean, Little Bastard and the Fate of 24. In 1955, James Dean was only 24 years old, but had become the brightest young face in Hollywood after the resounding success of East of Eden and Rebel Without a Cause. He was a symbol of rebellious youth of the generation, without a cause, a rising star with a seemingly bright future ahead. In addition to movies, Dean also had a strong passion for speed. He regularly participated in amateur races, collected sports cars, and spent more time on the track than in the Hollywood spotlight. On September 21, 1955, Dean received a brand new Porsche 550 Spyder, a sports car of only 90 units worldwide, with chassis number 5500055. He nicknamed it Little Bastard, stuck a large number 130 on the body, and had George Barris, the king of custom cars of Hollywood, sign it. The car attracted attention from the moment it appeared. Many friends thought it looked dangerous. Even British actor Alec Guinness, upon seeing the Porsche, told Dean, "If you drive it, you will be dead within a week." The warning sounded like a premonition of fate. On the afternoon of September 30th, Dean and German engineer Rolf Wutherich drove Little Bastard from Los Angeles to Salinas for a race. Behind them was Bill Hickman, the manager, in a truck carrying parts. Dean had originally planned to tow the car to the destination on a trailer, but at the last minute decided to drive it himself to break in the engine. Along the way, he was repeatedly ticketed for speeding by police at about 5:45 p.m. while passing the intersection of Route 466. Now State Route 46 and Route 41 near the town of Chelame. Tragedy struck. A Ford Tudor driven by 23-year-old Donald Turnipseed suddenly turned left across the road. Dean came at about 85 miles per hour. He was too close to react. The head-on collision crushed the Porsche, sending it flying into pieces. Dean was trapped in the steering wheel, broke his neck, and suffered severe injuries, dying minutes after being pulled from the car. Rolf Wutherich was seriously injured but survived. Turnipseed suffered only a concussion and left the scene after giving a statement. James Dean's sudden death immediately caused a media frenzy. After only 3 films, he was elevated to legend, an immortal cultural icon. People not only mourned his short-lived talent, but were also haunted by the fateful car itself. After the accident, George Barris bought the Porsche's body, and from then on a series of horror stories appeared. A doctor bought an engine for a racing car and died on the track. Another racer using a manual transmission had a serious accident. When the chassis was on display, it fell several times, breaking legs or injuring employees. The truck carrying the chassis around even flipped over, killing the driver. Gradually, the curse of Little Bastard spread, turning the Porsche into a symbol of death. Today, many researchers assert that most of the stories about the haunted car were exaggerated. There is no solid evidence for all the accidents associated with its parts. However, it cannot be denied that those anecdotes contributed to strengthening the legend of James Dean, a talented young man who lived fast and died when his career was just beginning to shine. Right at that fateful intersection, a memorial named James Dean Memorial Junction was erected to remember the ill-fated star. More than half a century has passed, but the image of James Dean with sad eyes, a cigarette on his lips, and a carefree appearance still lives on. And the Little Bastard, whether real or just a legend, is still associated with a fateful death, turning James Dean into a symbol of a generation, short, fierce, and immortal in human memory. Paul Walker, Fast Furious in real life. Paul Walker, the star of Fast Furious, is not only an actor associated with a screen full of fire and speed, but in real life, he is also a true supercar player. Born in 1973, Walker had a passion for cinema since he was young, but only really exploded when he played the role of Brian O'Connor, an undercover cop caught up in the world of street racing. That image quickly became a global icon associated with his name for more than a decade. Off the set, Walker is a true speed enthusiast. He owns a huge collection of supercars from Nissan Skyline, Toyota Supra, to Ferrari Porsche. But that passion is also the red thread that connects to a tragic fate. On November 30th, 2013, Walker and his close friend Roger Rodas attended a charity event in Santa Clarita, California. After leaving the venue, the two got into a Porsche Carrera GT, a supercar that is notoriously difficult to control, with a V10 engine of over 600 horsepower, and even a small mistake could cause a disaster. Just a few minutes later, when the car was driving on a road less than 500 meters from the event, it lost control at a speed of over 150 kilometers per hour. The Porsche jumped onto the sidewalk, crashed straight into a lamppost, and then continued to collide with two large trees on the side of the road. The terrible impact crushed the car, leaving only the steel frame. In an instant, a fierce fire broke out, engulfing the entire car. Roger Rodas died instantly after the crash. Paul Walker was trapped in the passenger compartment, unable to escape, and died in red flames. When the rescue team arrived, it was too late. The news spread like wildfire, shocking the world. Fans were shocked by the cruel paradox. A star who portrayed an immortal racer on screen ended his life. In a real-life supercar, Hollywood was shaken, and the Fast Furious series lost a soul. Part 7 of the series was forced to rewrite the script. Unfinished scenes were completed with special effects and the support of Walker's two younger brothers. The film ended with the song "See You Again," along with a farewell scene on the highway, a farewell that brought tears to audiences around the world. Sam Kinison, laughter stopped. Sam Kinison was one of the most prominent comedians in America in the 1980s, 1990s. Originally a pastor, he turned to comedy and quickly made his mark with his fierce performance style, distinctive screams, and frank releases about marriage, religion, and society. His boldness and difference made Kinison a phenomenon, often appearing on television, selling out big shows and being dubbed the roar of American comedy. However, Sam Kinison's life ended in a tragic accident caused by his own persistent problems, alcohol, and the steering wheel. On April 10th, 1992, Kinison was on his way to California to prepare for a show, the Pontiac Trans Am. He was driving with his newlywed wife, Malika Sweary, suddenly faced a pickup truck coming from the opposite direction. Behind the wheel was a 17-year-old drunk who lost control of his speed and crashed straight into Kinison's car. The head-on collision left Kinison with severe injuries to his chest and head. However, he remained conscious for several minutes. Witnesses recounted that Kinison whispered to his wife, "I don't want to die, but maybe this is the time." A few minutes later, he breathed his last breath at the scene at the age of 38. His wife was lucky to escape with only minor injuries. Sam Kinison's death shocked not only the comedy world, but also the American public. An artist who once made audiences laugh eventually passed away due to the consequences of a drunk driver. The incident became a painful testament, sparking a wave of indignation and strong calls for anti-drink driving campaigns. Today, Sam Kinison is still remembered as a unique comedy star, a wild laugh that was stopped too soon, and his tragedy continues to remind us of the terrible price that recklessness behind the wheel can bring. Princess Diana, a fateful night in Paris. Princess Diana, the woman who shook the British royal family and touched the hearts of millions, passed away in a tragedy that shocked the world. On the night of August 31st, 1997, Diana and her boyfriend Dodi Al-Fayed left the Ritz Hotel in Paris. Outside, dozens of paparazzi were waiting, following them every step of the way. Toulouse driver Henri Paul drove his Mercedes-Benz S280 at high speed into the night. There was also bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones in the car. When the car entered the Alma Tunnel, it was already going over 110 kilometers per hour, twice the legal limit. In a split second, the Mercedes lost control, collided with a Fiat, and crashed straight into a concrete pillar. The horrific collision caused the car to deform. Henri Paul and Dodi died on the spot. Trevor Rees-Jones was seriously injured but survived. Diana was trapped in a pile of metal, still breathing. The rescue team immediately appeared, took her out of the car in critical condition. For many hours, from the Alma Tunnel to the Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital, the whole world held its breath, watching every news. People hoped that the people's princess would pull through. But at 4 a.m., the bad news was confirmed. Diana had passed away at the age of 36 due to severe internal injuries and excessive blood loss. Her death was not only a shock to Britain, but also a global grief. Hundreds of millions of people cried. A sea of flowers covered Kensington Palace. On the day of the funeral, more than 25 billion people around the world watched on television, making it one of the most watched events in history. To the sounds of Elton John's Candle in the Wind, Diana was sent off as a timeless icon, the people's princess who lived her life for simple things: love, compassion, and humanity. Grace Kelly, Princess and the Monaco Abyss. Grace Kelly was once a Hollywood dream. Born in 1929 in Philadelphia, she quickly became one of the brightest stars of the 1950s. With her elegant beauty, calm demeanor, and natural talent, Grace made her mark through a series of classic works such as High Noon, 1952, Dial M for Murder, 1954, or Rear Window, 1954. Her career peaked when she won the Oscar for The Country Girl, 1954. However, when her career was at its peak, Grace Kelly shocked the world when she decided to leave Hollywood to become Princess of Monaco after her marriage to Prince Rainier III in 1956. In her role as a princess, Grace Kelly still maintained her elegant and sophisticated demeanor. She became a global icon, a model of combining cinematic glory and royalty. However, her seemingly fairy tale life ended in a cruel tragedy. On September 13, 1982, Grace Kelly drove a Rover carrying Princess Stephanie, then 17 years old, on a narrow and winding mountain road from Rock Aigle to Monaco. While the car was turning, Grace suddenly suffered a stroke and lost control of the steering wheel. The Rover veered off the road, fell into a 35-meter deep ravine, and flipped several times before stopping. Stephanie was lucky to survive with many injuries, but Grace suffered serious injuries: a traumatic brain injury, broken ribs, a broken thigh, and severe bleeding. She was taken to Princess Grace Hospital, but despite the doctor's efforts to save her, her condition could not be improved. The next day, Grace Kelly breathed her last at the age of 52. Her death plunged Monaco and Hollywood into mourning. The whole world was shocked by the sudden departure of the one-time silver screen queen. A state funeral was held at St. Nicholas Cathedral, Monaco. The event was televised live with millions of viewers around the world watching in silence. In the solemn scene, the image of Prince Rainier bowing before his wife's coffin became a haunting moment. Those tears were not only those of a husband who lost his partner, but also the common loss of humanity for an eternal symbol. Grace Kelly passed away, leaving behind an immortal cinematic legacy, a true fairy tale, but also a reminder that behind the halo and fame, human fate is still fragile before destiny. Ryan Dunn. When speed and alcohol kill Jackass. Ryan Dunn is one of the most prominent faces of Jackass, a famous TV show with reckless, even crazy challenges. He is known for his wild spirit, willing to risk his body to create shocking moments. But it is that recklessness, when combined with speed and alcohol, that led Dunn to a tragic end. On the night of June 2011, Ryan Dunn and his friends gathered for a party that lasted for many hours at a bar in Westchester, Pennsylvania. After midnight, Dunn drove a Porsche 911 GT3, one of the most powerful super sports cars, with a maximum speed of more than 300 kilometers per hour, with his friend Zachary Hartwell. The two left the bar while it was still dark. Witnesses said the car shot like an arrow in the night, reaching a speed of nearly 200 kilometers per hour, many times the speed limit on a narrow suburban road. Just minutes later, tragedy struck. The Porsche lost control on a curve, flew off. The road crashed through a fence and hit a row of large trees. The force of the collision was so terrible that the car was completely destroyed and immediately burst into flames in the quiet night. When the rescue team arrived, all that was left was a pile of charred metal. The bodies of Dunn and Hartwell were so deformed that they were almost unrecognizable at the scene. The police investigation showed that Ryan Dunn's blood alcohol level was more than twice the legal limit. Not only that, the estimated speed of the car at the time of the collision was far beyond the safe level, turning it into a walking bomb. The truth revealed outrage and grief, a death that could have been completely avoided if Dunn had not let alcohol and recklessness control the steering wheel. Ryan Dunn's death shocked the media and fans around the world. Friends and colleagues in Jackass were in pain. Johnny Knoxville, his close brother, had to bitterly admit that Dunn lived exactly as he had always lived, recklessly and arrogantly, and in the end lost everything because of it. Ryan Dunn's funeral was held in an atmosphere of mourning, mixed with pain and regret. People mourned a daring artist, a man who dared to push the limits, but at the same time recognized the tragedy. Recklessness on screen can bring laughter and horror, but when stepped into real life, it can destroy a person in the blink of an eye. Ryan Dunn passed away at the age of 34, leaving behind a paradoxical legacy, a symbol of arrogance, but also a cruel testament to the price to pay when speed and alcohol go hand in hand on the wheel. From James Dean, Paul Walker, Grace Kelly, Jane Mansfield, Lisa Lopes, Ryan Dunn, Sam Kinison, to Tracy Morgan or Gloria Estefan. Each story shows a bitter truth: the halo cannot protect people from fate. Traffic accidents, speed alcohol, or a moment of loss of control all can turn an icon into a tragedy in a split second. But it is also from those losses that the world learns lessons about safety, about the value of sobriety behind the wheel. And sometimes, like Gloria Estefan or Tracy Morgan, tragedy can also become a turning point where darkness is turned into light. These stories remind us that whether in Hollywood or in real life, people are fragile before the wheel of fate. What remains is not only regret, but also a legacy, a lesson and an inspiration for us to live. Carefully cherish every moment. Don't forget to like to support, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos where we continue to reveal the secrets, tragedies, and real miracles of Hollywood. Real miracles of Hollywood. Real miracles of Hollywood. Real miracles of